Alrighty, I've chat, and I should probably wait for everyone to catch up. I'm doing this a little bit spur of the moment, or actually a lot spur of the moment. So I really do appreciate you hopping on. Do me a favor, and I'm gonna enable the chat here so I can see it. Jump on. Let me know what you're thinking here about the Penguins because we're getting into the stage here of the offseason, August, when nothing happens. And I mean absolutely, positively, holy crap, would someone do something? Nothing. The New York Rangers yesterday made what might be the biggest splash of the August season when they bought out Kevin Shattenkirk, which, boy, just a couple of years ago would have been entirely unthinkable. He was the sought-after defenseman on the free agent market, was he not? However, New York has been absolutely marshmallow soft over the last couple of years, and it really kind of the Rangers game I thought dragged Shattenkirk down, and I get a little. I always kind of scratch my head a little bit when fans kind of pile on a guy, calling him an anchor and terrible and I'm like, wait a second. Now, 2 years ago, he was the most sought-after defenseman, and fans were saying how great he was. What changed? The reality was a lot of times situations, especially with a defenseman and a goaltender, situations so often help, or situations so often create those perceptions. Now, Shattenkirk was very good, I thought, in Washington. Added points. He moved the puck well. And I actually, what I do know from sources around the situation of the Kevin Shattenkirk thing, the Pittsburgh Hockey Now family, or I should say the Pittsburgh or the National Hockey Now family. We've got Boston, we've got Colorado, we've got Pittsburgh, and there is one more coming, pending the NHL team's green light. We've all been working, all of our sources trying to find out. This is like the last big story, right, of the free agency thing, trying to find out where he's going. What we do know from sources about Shattenkirk, and I know it's not Penguins, so keep your shorts on, is he wants to stay in the tri-state area. We know that the Penguins are solidly not interested, so we can cross them off the list. It's hard to imagine the Devils going in on him after their offseason. And really, I think the New York Islanders are the team. Let me try to get the chat up here. Okay. There we go. All right, live chat. I can see it now. So, sitting out there, starting to believe, starting to think that maybe we were being a little bit sandbagged by all sources involved on this. As I read the tea leaves now, it definitely sounds like Pettersson and the Penguins are working towards a longer-term deal, not say a 1 year, 1.5 or a 1 year, $2 million deal. It really sounds like there's some legitimate work going into this, which, I mean, if you're Marcus Pettersson, you have no reason, if you're going to sign a long-term contract, to sell yourself short in that. You start factoring in potential, taking away arbitration years, you start factoring all of those things in, and actually, the price is going to go up on Marcus Pettersson. We've spent the last, say, 4 or 5 weeks at Pittsburgh Hockey Now trying to explain how the Penguins can make it work, how they can get Marcus Pettersson under contract. The last couple, iterations of that have been, in fact, how the Penguins can do it and not have to trade somebody. Well, if Pettersson's going to give up arbitration years, maybe a year or two of free agency, well, that costs money. That absolutely costs money. And so that 1.5 million lowball figure, that's out the window. Jamie Alexiak signed for 3 years, 2.1. That seems to me anyway, my original guess back from late May might have been more correct, that he isn't going to be in that $2 million range. If we start talking longer-term deal for Pettersson, 3 years, $6 million seems exactly as an agent where I'd want to be. In fact, as an agent, I'm looking ahead to the salary cap going up. And I'm saying, okay, I want 3 years, $7 million, 3 years, $8 million for Marcus Pettersson. His effect I think that's, yeah, it's not, wouldn't be an affect, that would be the effect, Marcus Pettersson's effect on Jack Johnson's season. And the fact that he was right beside Eric Goodbranson when Goodbranson's season turned around, those aren't coincidences. And it's not to say, and I've seen it suggested by just some of the militant anti-Jack Johnson crowd, I've seen it suggested that in fact Pettersson was responsible for the Johnson and Goodbranson turnaround. So we're not going anywhere close to that far, but we can in fact say that, well, Pettersson certainly played a good role in that. The Penguins obviously know that he played a good role in that. So I see the numbers are climbing just a little bit. Do me a favor, I can't like and share the video. I can't share it around to social media, so please do that for me. Share that back over to Twitter and say, hey, Kingerski's doing a live chat. Hop on and go join him. Walt Flanagan says, thank you for recognizing the difference between effect and affect. As a writer, that is one that gets me. And fortunately, look, I pay my $75 a year to Grammarly, and it catches when I use the wrong one. I also can't spell the word restaurant. And what's the other one I always misspell? Anywho, you don't need to know about all of my writing shortcomings, but you see them every day. You know my writing shortcomings, but please share this. Anyway, so talking about Marcus Pettersson, I really do think if they're going to go multi-years, longer term, that 3-6 is probably a good range where the Penguins aren't exposed, their risk isn't exposed, and the player still gets paid. He's only 22, hasn't proven a whole lot yet at the NHL level, but yeah, he had a really solid season after he took over for Daniel Sprong. By the way, I'm in the home studio, so there's no fancy graphics. You won't see Dan Kingerski or Pittsburgh Sports Live or any of those things here. This is just straight chat, me and you, so keep those live chats coming. Let me see. I did see one chat, and I missed it. There it is. Needing the cap space for Pettersson and Rusty being near the top of the speculation trade bait. Oh, come on, come back. Let me get back. Who would be a good suitor, and would it be a basic salary dump? No. Not for Rusty. No, you don't dump Brian Rust. Absolutely, positively, nope. Oh, Medina is saying that this came up as Pittsburgh Hockey Now, not me. Am I on the different channel? Am I on Pittsburgh Hockey Now, or not on the Pittsburgh Sports Live channel? I have no idea. All right, hey Sean, good to see you here as well. So if I'm on the wrong channel, I'm just killing time anyway. This is just kind of fun. Okay, good. I am on Pittsburgh Sports Live. At least I'm on the right channel, right? Let's talk about realistic trades. I have to wear a little bit of egg on my face. I screwed up the expansion draft this morning. Honestly, I wasn't going to publish anything on Pittsburgh Hockey Now today, and then the idea hit me. Hey, Penguins expansion draft. Who will they protect? Who will they expose? And I don't know what brain cramp became of me. I was thinking next summer was the expansion draft. Well, the expansion draft is not until 2021. Hello, McFly. So I kind of wrote this 900-word, 1,000-word piece on an expansion draft next summer. Oops, it was only up for about half an hour. I apologize for the mistake. This is one of those times where being a one-man band with Pittsburgh Hockey Now and not having a staff of 5 people, kind of burned me a little bit. But I appreciate your understanding on that. I'll be reworking the column because if you look ahead to 2021, the Penguins roster will still be under contract. All of the main players, the ones you love and the ones you don't love, Crosby and Malkin and Gensel and Hornquist and Nick Bjugstad and Jack Johnson Well, actually, Bukestad has 2 more years left. So, okay, we'll take Bukestad off the list. I think it's only 2. I think it's 2, not 3. But Jack Johnson will be under contract. Brandon Tanev will be under contract. Brian Rust will be under contract. So all of those guys will still be there. I'm sure Chris Letang will be under lock and key. Brian Dumoulin has 2 or 3 years left. Help me out. Someone look that up while I'm hands-free. And let's be honest, there's a good chance that Justin Schultz, they'll have to make a decision on him here in the next few months, whether they move him along or if they pay him. So the Penguins will have some meat on the bone to both expose to the expansion draft in 2021 and to protect. It will be quite interesting by 2021. Okay, so Dumoulin is 24 is when his contract, so he's got a few more years. Okay, so Dumoulin would need to be protected in 2 years too. But it'll be quite interesting what to do with Patrick Hornquist in 2 years, because he'll be 3 years into that 5-year deal, and he'll be on the back leg of that contract, and he will be, I think, 34 in 2 years. And so looking ahead to that will be very fun. I'm going to publish that tomorrow, the revamped, correct version. And again, I do apologize. Since there's no graphic, and I know some people have actually logged on to these, and I forget that some of you don't know who I am. You know who I am? I forget that some of you haven't followed me for the last 5 years since I came back to Pittsburgh from the Toronto market and the NHL Home Ice Sirius XM channel. And I forget that sometimes I'm completely an unknown to a large segment of the market. So let me introduce myself while I've got you here for a quick second. I am Dan Kingerski, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, the editor-in-chief. And from 2013 to 2016, I was with 93.7 The Fan, their evening host, until they kind of scrapped having a host at 10 p.m. because of the Pirates, and it just wasn't worth keeping a guy like me around. But I've been a hockey specialist since 2001. Believe it or not, my first day in sports media, I was actually a music jock. I came up through, Williamsport and, spinning records and doing that kind of thing and DJing parties. My first full-time Pittsburgh radio job was with Froggy. God help me, I hate country music. If you love it, that's fine. I hate it, but I was the evening guy on Froggy, and then Clear Channel, which is now iHeart Radio, picked me up, and I was doing weekends and swing shifts and some sports anchoring, and I was just doing literally there were 5 or 6 stations in that building, and I did work on every single one of them but WDVE. And I've always missed my dream there. Anywho, my first day in sports media was the day in 2001 when the Penguins fired their coach Yvonne Halinka, and they hired Rick Kehoe. Well, just kind of spur of the moment, the general manager said, "Dan, go down and cover it." Well, I guess I did a pretty good job. Because then a couple of days later, they sent me into the locker room to get some, those goofy, you hear players say, I'm all 24 at this point, by the way. A lot more hair, a lot younger, no glasses. They sent me into the locker room to, get the players to read those goofy promos. Like, in fact, the one I remember, "Hi, this is Christoph Oliwa. You're listening to Oldies on 3WS. And then a couple days later after that, I was a producer on the Pittsburgh Penguins radio network. So this is the ascendance of my career. I was going to actually have a show on what was back then Fox Sports 970. Management changed literally the weekend before my show was set to go. And no more show for Dan. So Dan got mad. Dan does what Dan always does. And Dan did his own thing. We started a little internet radio show back in 2002 before everyone was doing podcasts. I was way out in front of that. I'm getting to the hockey part, by the way, so hang with me. And I started a hockey show. And I partnered up with some young guys who were calling themselves thefourthperiod.com. So me being young guy, those guys being young guy, we kind of grew together. And over the course of a couple years after that, into 2005 and then 2008, grew the show. Might have to go get a drink here. To about 15 radio stations across Canada and the U.S. We were in Philadelphia, we were on in Nashville, we were on in Toronto and Hamilton and London and Vancouver and Calgary. Calgary was actually the first one to pick us up, et cetera, and on it went. Then the NHL Sirius XM channel picked me up. By this point, my sources are growing, and I had been the Team USA play-by-play guy. And then I was minor league play-by-play guy for the Johnstown Chiefs. You can see my little, still have that. I'll get to your question in a second, Medina. Because my Froggy name is definitely a story I want to tell. But by this point, my hockey reputation, my name had been kind of growing in hockey and in sources and so forth. And then Sportsnet grabbed me in 2012 and 2013. Lockout hits. I spent 6 months on the beach before 93.7 The Fan brought me back to talk hockey and did all, So people are like, well, who are you? What do you know about hockey? I've spent the better part of the last 20 years inside and around the game, covering it from all angles. Now as a writer, as a radio host, as an analyst, even as a play-by-play guy. Been there, done that, love it. So that's my hockey resume. Now to Medina's question, what was my Froggy name? Bear in mind this is the year 2000, so the cultural reference is a little bit dated. My Froggy name was Joey Buttafrago. A bit of a takeoff on Joey Buttafuoco. It was kind of my little baffondu to the Froggy management who made me take a Froggy name. I hated to have to do that. I'm actually getting myself choked up here because my throat is ridiculously sore. Maybe this was a bad idea. Yep, I was Joey Buttafrago, and I got the call a day later. Really, Dan? That's the name you're going to take, Joey Buttafrago, a guy who had a 16-year-old girl shoot his wife. And I said, hey, it's in your book. It's fair game, right? And he said, it is. And I said, I can use it, right? And they said, are you sure you want to? And I said, do you like it? And they said, no. I said, then I want to use it. And that's how Joey Buttafrago came into being. I used to do... am I screaming? I'm not screaming. I'm trying to project into the phone a little bit. I should move a little closer. But that's kind of been my career. Upsetting people has never been in short supply in whatever I do. So let's get back to the Penguins. I did want to give you a bit of a bio because when some blogs come at me or other people come at me, well, who are you? Well, I've spent 20 years in this racket, not on YouTube or not just blogging, but on the inside of things. And in that time, I like to think that I've made a great effort to learn the X's and O's and learn the culture and learn the game of hockey. So getting back to the old Pittsburgh Penguins here, looking at their offseason. They are going to have to trade a player sooner than later. And it looks like our initial reactions and our initial thoughts were absolutely correct in that the Penguins will have to make a trade to sign Marcus Pettersson. They could do it on a short, one-year deal. They can clear the space. There's Ruedel and Trotman that can go to the minors 12 days before the season starts. If you put Jari as the backup goaltender, well, there's enough money to sign Pettersson on a one-year deal, but it doesn't sound like that's what the Penguins are going to do. So let's talk about these dominoes here. If the Penguins sign Marcus Pettersson, one of three defensemen essentially have to go away. Jack Johnson, Eric Goodbranson, Justin Schultz. Now, it's not as easy as you want to say, oh, just dump Jack Johnson. Not that easy, is it? Because if you move your tough left side defenseman, who, by the way, is one of the few guys to actually defend, then you start really having to mix and match. There is, Pettersson could slide with Justin Schultz, and I think I've made this point before. Pettersson and Schultz could be a second pairing, but isn't that really a weak pairing? I mean, not physically strong. I could see that pairing really being victimized because it's not necessarily a good match of players. Good defenseman, not a good whole. I like Pettersson a lot with Goodbranson. Now, if you move Goodbranson, you saw the pushback that Goodbranson applied to the Penguins lineup in the second half last season. You really saw he was one of the steady Eddie defensemen too. So when you take on the Washington Capitals and Tom Wilson, when you take on the New York Islanders with Cal Clutterbuck, when you take on the Philadelphia Flyers, and all these teams in the Metro, boy, isn't it nice to have a guy like Goodbranson in your back pocket who can play 18 minutes a night, do so competently, and if he has to, punch somebody in the head very competently. That's what the Penguins would be giving up if they moved Goodbranson. They would move that $4 million salary. But what are you losing for that $4 million? And that's really the part that I've struggled with. Maybe you haven't struggled with it, but I have. Is the Penguins' whole is greater than the sum of their parts on defense. Tell you what, give me about 8 seconds. I need to grab a little water bottle here. Give me 8 seconds. See, even radio guys don't have to talk for 20 minutes consecutively. By the way, did you try this stuff? It's like this Giant Eagle flavored water. It's ridiculously good. I mean it. I feel like a NASCAR driver now. I stand here and, well, we had the Giant Eagle Fruitation Key Lime Chevy running real good. You know, we're only 2 laps down till we blow the tire and hit the wall. Anyway, in terms of the Penguins' defense, it is greater than the sum of its parts. You can bag Jack Johnson. You can, you can say how Goodbranson has not lived up to some of the hype he had early in his career. You can say that, Justin Schultz has had 2 down years in a row, and he has. Obviously, the leg injury last year derailed him. 2 years ago, he was ice cold and pressing and gripping the stick a little bit too tight. You can say all those things and be accurate, but when you put them all together, well, suddenly, the defense is Jim Rutherford used the words good enough, and those are the words I think I'll go with too. The defense is good enough. Is it great? No. Is it bad? No. No, the defense as a whole is not. But when you kick a piece like Johnson out, now you have to start moving things around, and you have to readjust your chemistries, and Juuso Riikola is there. And I'm very curious to see what he does in year number 2. I think, of the Ruedel, Trotman, Riikola triumvirate, Riikola is by far the more talented of the 3 defensemen, the guy who could play 80 NHL games without batting an eye. Could he work with Goodbranson? I think so. I think that actually might be a nice pairing if the Penguins experiment with that Pettersson-Schultz pairing and they trade Jack Johnson. That's how I see it working, but I also see great danger with that second pairing again. I need Paul Schaefer and some drinking music. So I should spike that too. Anyway, keep those comments coming. I know there's not a lot of you. We didn't advertise this. We didn't even schedule this. I literally sat down, popped the camera up, and hit record to do this. So that's what happens if you trade Jack Johnson. Now, if Justin Schultz was my X factor in this whole thing, because I thought the Penguins could get a lot for Justin Schultz, and I thought they could replace Justin Schultz. But the time for that replacement is over with. You just don't trade for a second pairing right-handed defenseman who can quarterback a power play, And you don't find those guys every day. They have great value. And I don't want to see the Penguins go back to the first 50 games last season, 55 games before they got Goodbranson, when they were literally just juggling defensive pairings every night. Think of how many defense pairings they went through last year. Alexiak and Johnson, Alexiak and Mata, Mata and Johnson, Johnson and Mata. I mean, it just, before they finally settled on Jack Johnson on the right side, and who am I missing? They even shuffled Dumoulin around a little bit, trying to balance their pairs. Oh, I missed the chat here. Let me try to get that. Let me try to get it back here. Okay. What would the Pens need in return for Rust? Clearly a versatile top 9, but what roles would they look to fill? I don't think you need to fill any roles. If you trade Brian Rust, you have the luxury of making it a pure hockey trade, so long as some salary, as long as the salary is a little bit imbalanced. They could get a third pairing defenseman. They could get a draft pick for Brian Rust. They could get, another 13th forward. They really could go any different direction for Rust. I don't think there's one area of need that the Penguins have. And I mean that. The defense, good enough. Let's call it a C+, B- defensive core. But it's solid, and it's not going to be making the same defensive mistakes that we saw over the last couple years because they've got defensive defensemen. Their forwards crew, as it sits right now, is ridiculously deep and solid, and I mean solid as in terms of bone structure, between Bukestad and Hornquist and Tanev and Rust. And Jake Gensel can play stiff when he wants to. And Sidney Crosby. Genny Malkin's not exactly a little guy either. The guys... Oh, Zach Aston Reese as well. Hey, Addict, glad you're here. Zach Aston Reese is a bowling ball as well. So the only guys who really aren't beefy or physical are the Dominics. Simone and Cahoon, the big Kahuna. Those are the two guys who aren't physical. Otherwise, the Penguins are deep. They're going to roll 4 lines and have a lot of options to mix and match. Trade Johnson, then trade Goodbranson with Jari, trade Rust for a pick, then sign Gardner. No. I don't believe Jake Gardner is significantly better than Justin Schultz. And that, I'll tell you the one, and maybe Gardner is a little better on the top end, but Schultz does not commit those ghastly turnovers that Jake Gardner has had hung on him. Schultz doesn't make those, doesn't serve pizzas up through the slot like Gardner can do sometimes. And make no mistake, that's one of the reasons Gardner is still unsigned, is because some of the teams which needed defensive help don't want Gardner. Might have the entire thing empty by the time we're done here. So there's that with Jake Gardner. And Gardner wants, I haven't seen any adjustments on his asking price, but the initial estimates were north of $6 million. Just, to me, that's an easy pass. Not easy pass, but an easy pass. Because that's a Kevin Shattenkirk deal in waiting right there to sign Jake Gardner for $6.5 or $7 million. Justin Schultz is probably the top end of where he should be at 5.5. Any more than that, I'd probably say pass on Justin Schultz as well, unless he returns to that 55-point form he showed back in 2017. That was quite an extraordinary run. What did he score? He had points in like 31 of 34 games from November to February or March. It was an absolutely extraordinary run. and multiple points, and he just he finally busted out in his career, and he had a blast that year. Always laughing and smiling, and haven't seen as much of that from Justin Schultz in the last couple of years. And that's why if the Penguins re-signed him, I think 3 years, $15 million would be quite appropriate for that. Now, would the player agree to that? And that's the big thing. Schultz is probably looking at it like, well, I've got 1 year till free agency. I'm playing on a very talented team. And if I ride it out and have a 40-point year, I'll get paid next summer by the Penguins or somebody else. Let me get back to the chat here so you don't need to see my knuckles. Okay. I'd rather watch young, hungry players at lower salaries than higher salaries phoning it in. Steelers style strategy. I agree with you. I would rather watch guys, blood and guts guys, go for it every night than watch a guy hang at the red line and just kind of phone it in. Absolutely. Give me a guy with some jam and some sandpaper and some heart who scores 50 points, even 40, compared to a guy who mails it in who scores 60. I'll take my 45-point grinder over Jeff Skinner, who was 55, 60-point skater until last season. Question: has anything happened since Galchenyuk? Just a bit, yeah. Yeah, did you miss the whole Brandon Tanev thing? Zach Aston Reese as well. What else was there? That's just about it. Oh, Matt Cullen retired. I'll catch up on the whole summer. Well, back in my day. So what else have we? What else should we get to here? But just kind of completing my thought on the Penguins trade. You can tell allergies in addition to my sore throat. I'm kicking my butt this week. So that's, Jack Johnson is the low-hanging fruit to trade. And if you get, a draft pick for him, more is the better. But then you probably have to do one or two more moves down the road to reset your defense to make it the best it can be. And that becomes very difficult. We've seen, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. So, forgive the sniffles. I'm going to have to take a time out and go blow my nose, too. That's a different direction here from the home studio. But I guess to complete my thought was Justin Schultz trading him. If, I think the time to do that was June when there were other options available. I don't know who they would get now to replace Justin Schultz. I don't think Juuso Riikola, even though he can play the right side because he kind of grew up playing on his off wing or his off hand, I don't see him being able to do that. At least in a second pairing role. Maybe a third pairing, protected minutes, but I don't see him being ready for the deep end. Yep, Zach Aston Reese did sign, avoided arbitration. Pittsburgh Hockey Now had the scoop an hour before everybody else. I almost trolled some people. I thought about it because, our usual trolls came out of the woodwork. We reported that literally at about 11:01. I'd been working sources on all sides of that very hard, as you probably can tell through the summer. We were ahead of the game there. And I got the text, it's done. We had it up as soon as we possibly could. We were an hour ahead of the newspapers, and I'm going to brag a little bit because I was so excited to do that. Any victory for us is a bigger victory. And I saw the trolls start coming out. Well, it's Kingerski. I'm going to wait till other people say it. Okay. Go ahead, wait. And then, by noon, I had, everything was spot on. The source was incontrovertible. I knew it was going to be. I had no doubts when the source had texted us. So, where was I going with that? Oh, I wanted to go back and start trolling people. Or my source is good enough for you. Just play like that. I'm human. bear with me, okay? I am a human being, and it still drives me nuts that people hang stories I never wrote on me that weren't correct or whatever it might be. Some trolls still say that I wrote some things that I didn't write last summer and 2 summers ago. It's like, well, anyway. I did see a question. I'm sorry. You'll have to, let me see if I can, oh, there we go. If I just scroll on them. Where do I think Tanev and Cahoon fit in the lineup? I think I've touched on this, but maybe not in depth. So let's dive into that. Great question. Sullivan sets his lines on pairings, not trios. And that's always important to say before every discussion on lines. That means we're going to have 8 guys together and 4 loose atoms. So Cahoon and Tanev are, I think, loose atoms, because you're going to have Gensel and Crosby, I think Galchenyuk and Malkin, you're going to have Bukestad and Hornquist, and you're going to have Bluger and I think Zach Aston Reese kind of form a pairing there. McCann is going to float around the lines. Brian Russ is going to float around the lines. Tanev will float, as will Dominic Cahoon. I think Dominic Simone goes to the press box. Of course, Cahoon and Simone might battle. You might see both of those guys have some press box time. You might see Zach Aston Reese have some press box time as well. Those 3 guys kind of share that 13th forward designation, the 12-13. But where Tanev could play, boy, imagine this line. Tanev, Bukestad, Hornquist. What a nightmare that will be for opponents. Even imagine this line. Tanev, Malkin, Hornquist. Very much like that Hagelin, Malkin, Hornquist line that was so dominant a couple of years ago. I'm excited to see what Tanev can do. I have to get my Apple laptop out of the repair shop. It's been done now for a few days. I just haven't had time to drive to Wheeling to get it, because the boys down in Wheeling offered to fix it for literally half the price of the boys in Shadyside, and fixing MacBooks isn't cheap. So it was worth a couple $100 to drive to Wheeling and drop it off. Getting back to, anyway, the lines. So you're going to see a lot. And you're going to see Sullivan ride the hot hands. And you're going to see people complaining, oh, Sullivan is in love with Cahoon. Or Sullivan's in love with Zach Aston Reese. I know it's coming already. You just have to kind of roll with it. Could Simone end up as trade fodder before the deadline? He's a nice throw-in. I don't know that teams, unless Simone takes that step forward and begins actually putting the puck in the net, he's a nice throw-in. Otherwise, he's a guy whose value to your team exceeds his value on the trade market. That's why I see Dominic Simone. And it's not like he makes a bundle of money. He makes, what, $750,000, $700,000? So, in terms of salary cap implications, that's what you want to pay your 13th forward. You can't pay them any less, essentially. So I don't, if someone says, okay, deal's close, and they say, okay, we want Simone too, that's where you'll see Dominic Simone pop up on the trade market. All right, we good so far? Let me get back to some of the questions here. Sorry, yeah, I have to actually scroll through. Logan says, I've been so locked in on the Steelers this offseason, I've missed a lot. Logan, just go home, man. Those dirty words around here. Devin says, I'm excited to see McCann and Cahoon play a full season with the Penguins. I hope the Pens are hungry to win this fall and not lazy and look over teams. I think that's a very real possibility that you're going to see a very angry, thumping, hungry, aggressive Penguins team. Their roster is set up for that. I mean, you have Malkin with a lot to prove. So that's going to add a bit of anger and juice to the lineup. You've got Hornquist with something to prove. That's going to add a ton of juice to the lineup. I think Brandon Tanev does. Although I will tell you, I've been doing some film study on Tanev, and I have to get to it. I have to finish it. It's not easy work to do. But Tanev is not necessarily, I'm not seeing the player that I expected on film. I'm seeing, well, let's just say he's not, he had 278 hits last year. I'm watching the game with the Capitals from November 1st, and I haven't seen one yet. That's quite interesting to me. So I have to watch about 4 or 5 more games to really get a good sample size and to determine what it is we're going to see from Brandon Tanev. I'm still going with what our sources, the people from Winnipeg told us. You're going to love this guy. He hits everything that moves. He's a little wrecking ball of energy, ball of fire, ball of hate, all of the above. I'm still sticking with that, but my initial on-film impression was to maybe temper that a little bit. But we're going to see a lot of differences. Is it hockey season yet, Amanda asks. Yes. Yes, it is, Amanda. It's always hockey season with me. The rookie prospect, or the rookie tournament, the prospect tournament, is the 4th through the 6th up in Buffalo. Friday, Saturday, they take Sunday off. Why in the hell they take... Like, no one's staying in Buffalo on Sunday to watch Monday prospect games. No one's doing it. I promise you. They did the same thing last year. And all of us writers were talking like, okay, who's coming back Monday? A couple guys like, yeah, I'm coming back. Yeah, I'm coming back. No one came back. They're just... Once you get a couple or a few games, you have the flavor. The kids aren't very good quotes. Although this year might be a little bit different with Laguerre and Poulin in the mix. I still probably won't come back for the games on Monday. I'll take the Friday, Saturday games and maybe a practice on Sunday. But that'll be as much as you get from Pittsburgh hockey now. I'm sorry. Last year, the Penguins prospect team got crushed in their 3 games. And I mean, they absolutely got crushed by everybody. They weren't competitive in 2 of the 3 games. I think in 3 of the 4 games. They just got smoked. This year should be a different story. Especially, I want to see Emil Larmi in a 5-on-5 situation. The Finnish goaltender who's rookie coming over, 22 years old. Man, he was a blast. He was an absolute blast in the development camp. Just laughing and I love America. This is great. And anytime a guy says that, I'm a fan. Now I'm going to root for Emil. If he thinks Cranberry is great, just wait till he gets to Pittsburgh. Buffalo, maybe not, but Pittsburgh, he will. Let me saw a couple comments come through here. Probably going to lose Jari, or will the Smith be the casualty? Boy, Jim Rutherford is sending every signal that Jari is going to be the casualty. I don't agree with that. I like Casey DeSmith a great deal as a person and as a player, but I think it's time to see what Tristan Jarry is. Is he a Philip Grubauer, who's kind of a middling starter? Is he a Phoenix Copley, who's a backup? Or is he a Ben Bishop kind of guy who comes, finally comes through and becomes the starter? Ben Bishop, Robin Lehner, trying to think of some of the guys who maybe kicked around a little bit before they finally got to start. I have liked a lot of what I've seen from Jarry. And this is one of those cases where I have to concede that my limitations, right? I'm not paid $1 million a year to analyze goalies. And there's obviously something that those people see that I don't see. So I have to concede that. I hate conceding that, by the way. Absolutely hate to concede that, but Um, so I would definitely install Jari. I don't think there's much chance that Casey DeSmith would get claimed on waivers. Not because he's not good, just because he's a backup goaltender, and I don't think many teams really need a backup goalie right now. Now, next summer, I don't know if you read between the lines of what I wrote. Today's what, Thursday? Would have been Tuesday, about Vasilevsky, or Monday afternoon, Vasilevsky and Matt Murray. Look, Vasilevsky has slightly better numbers, but those numbers didn't come into effect until Vasilevsky's 5th NHL season. Matt Murray is going to enter his 5th NHL season. With the Penguins' revamped defense and commitment to defense on in their forwards crew, what if Murray posts a .925, which is where Vasi was last season? What if Murray's in the Vezina conversation? Hell, what if Murray wins the Vezina trophy? Then you've got Stanley Cups and a Vezina. Even though Matt Murray is a restricted free agent next summer, it's going to cost the Penguins. And I promise you, I know for a fact, more than one source from different corners of the building has expressed the same worry. How much money is Matt going to want? The Penguins are already bracing for that eventuality next summer. They're playing a little bit of a waiting game. They can sign him now, probably to a more affordable contract. But what if you get the Matt Murray of 2017-18, who wasn't very good? Now, Matt Murray is banking on the fact that he's going to show them the second half 2018-19 Matt Murray and get paid. It's definitely a game of chicken between the Penguins and Matt Murray. Right now, I would say start the bidding at $7 million. That's going to be my expectations of Murray's season will be a .920 and above save percentage. I think he'll stay healthy too. I think he's getting to the point where he's understanding what it takes in the NHL to get and to stay healthy. He's also going to have a lot more help this coming season. So, $7 million bucks, that's going to be about the going rate for a guy like Matt Murray, because those 2 Stanley Cup rings, they make a lot of noise. They make a crap ton of noise, especially on the market. Now, because he's restricted, and notwithstanding Mark Bergevin's half-assed offer to Sebastian Aho this summer, restricted free agents don't get offers. But how often does a franchise goalie come on the market? And if that's what Murray proves himself to be, dear Lord, some team's going to have to look into it, right? Some team has to say, hey, Matt Murray, how about $8 million? They would have to, wouldn't they? Timeout. 1 quick second. My apologies. I knew if I stuck around another minute, you're gonna start seeing like snot bubbles and things. And this isn't radio where I can hide or hit the cough button. Anyway, so that's where I am with the whole Matt Murray situation. It's gonna cost the Penguins big bucks unless Murray falters. So either way, the Penguins lose in this situation. If they win, Murray wins. And if Murray wins, well, the Penguins lose. You kind of see it's going to be a little bit of a vicious cycle. And I think this is one of those cases where Jim Rutherford might be wise to gauge the first half of the season and then just splash the cash. But there is that whole deal. The Penguins are stuffed with the salary cap. They are stocked full. They're having to work just to sign Marcus Pettersson. To get Matt Murray to a legitimate starting goaltender salary. Let's even say $6 million. If you think I'm a little high on the $7 million side. Let's say $6 million. Where's that money going to come from? By that point, because it's not like the Penguins have youngsters on the defensive side where you can get rid of a Goodbranson or a Dumoulin even. They're going to be in a world of hurt next summer. I mean, they truly are. I just don't know where the money's going to come from. You have to sacrifice a Patrick Hornquist and then some to pay Matt Murray next summer. That's going to be a huge deal if they have to weaken themselves. And so tying it all together, that's one of the reasons that I would install Tristan Jarry as the backup goaltender, even for a little while, just to see what in the world they've got. Jason says, what do I see on the defensive side of things? Jason, you're killing me. I just spent about, I think, 15 minutes on it. But I'll get to it just for you. Can't wait to see Pittsburgh play New Jersey. I'm excited about all the changes they've made. They really have made a lot of changes in New Jersey for the better. Let me... Okay, no, I actually have to... Okay, let's see here. You really believe that we will see a defense that is responsible and forwards that will play 200-foot hockey? Yeah, Jason, I really do. Look at the Penguins roster now. Go to, Daily Face-Off and look at the Penguins line combinations. And you see every single line now has defensively responsible players on it. The Penguins' biggest problem this coming season will be, can they score enough? Suppression will not be an issue. Breaking, the other team's suppression will be the issue. Can Galchenyuk break through that, 19-20 goal barrier? If he's going to play top six with the Penguins need 60 to 70 points out of him. They really do, because he's not very good defensively. So, they're going to have to not only mitigate his weakness there, but they're going to have to mitigate it with offense. But other than Galchenyuk, there isn't a single defensive, or isn't a single player who is a weak link defensively. So yeah, I really do. And we've been over this on the defense. They've got 4 defensive defensemen on their blue line. And they've got, a couple guys who can move the puck, Letang and Justin Schultz. They really could, and I say this because it's much easier said than done. If they move Jack Johnson, if they could find a way to infuse some speed and maintain some of that toughness, they'd be, but those guys aren't exactly cheap, that's for sure. Mr. Chang, Dan, love the live streams. How well do you think Ron Francis will do in Seattle? Great question, sir. I unfortunately wrote about that this morning for about half an hour before I had to pull the article down because I had made a terrible error. The expansion draft is in 2021. We're going to find out how much Ron Francis, A, learned from his time in Carolina, B, how much Ron Francis has learned from George McPhee, and how McPhee just fleeced everyone in the NHL for at least an extra draft pick, sometimes multiple extra draft picks. I think Ron Francis was very good as the Carolina GM, but too conservative. He built a solid foundation in Carolina, but didn't do the things necessary to get them over the top, into the playoffs, get them over the hump. Rask was the guy that was kind of the finishing touch, and last summer when they got Dougie Hamilton and Ferland from Calgary, it was kind of a loser trade for Carolina, but it made them all come together, and they got it. And they got into the playoffs, and they were a much better team. And Francis never made that move to make his team better. He just kept adding single pieces and parts and growing, and he was just a little too conservative. If I have to bet, Ron Francis is a smart enough guy to learn that Francis will indeed have a very good Seattle team. Not a popular opinion, but I'm glad Kessel is gone. Ooh, be careful. Now, Jason, I think you'll find a better home in my audience than you will in most. Galchenyuk will turn a corner playing with Gino, and Malkin will be a force this year, no doubt about it. Sean also says Malkin should have a big bounce back year. And angry Evgeny Malkin was always very good Evgeny Malkin, and I think the Penguins probably tapped into that. They have to have. If Malkin doesn't come back with a little bit of a vengeance, if he doesn't come back with a bit of anger, and he tries to play that dipsy-do dance at the blue line game, it's going to get ugly, actually. Malkin has got to realize his teammates, his team, or I should say his line mates, his team, the game is different. And he can try to dance all he wants. But if he starts chipping the puck in, backing up those defenders, he's going to find, A, his team has the puck more often because he's not turning it over. But B, if he starts backing those defenders in by making the smart and the right play, he's going to find he has more room at the blue line to do those things, start charging into the zone. He's going to have more space to make those plays that he can make, to rip the shot, to really to grow his offensive game once again. I mean, what did he have? 70 points last year, 72 points in a down year, in a terrible year? So, yeah, if I had to bet on Malkin's over-under compared to last year, I'd take the over too. All right, we're coming up on an hour here. I appreciate everybody hanging in. Last call for questions here on the chat board. Do me a favor, like and share the podcast. If you missed my little resume at the beginning, you can go back and watch that since we had no fancy graphics. Couldn't see that, hey, I'm Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now, and this is Pittsburgh Sports Live. You can see R2 behind me, Mike Lang, my helmet, and the Johnstown Chiefs. Oh, can you see? Yeah. And there's Mario. Oh. I don't know where he came from, too, but Beaker. I shouldn't tell you this, but my original nickname in my fraternity, they actually had to change it because they realized there was a guy like 5 or 10 years before me who had the same nickname, but Beaker was my nickname at first. No, I'm not telling you what my second nickname became. Not gonna do it. All right, let's see here. Holy smokes, you remember the skyline, Dan? Francis, Yager, and Lemieux? Yes, I do. Let's see here, what else have I missed? Are there any prospects we could see make the lineup this year? Matthew asks. Matthew, I would not bet against seeing Nathan Laguerre get a 9-game tryout. That's all the further I'll go. I love the kid's shot. I liked how he was a bull with the puck and going after the puck. Poulin has a more complete game. First-round draft pick Sam Poulin has a more complete game. I don't think he has enough offense right now to blend into the NHL. So I don't see him getting the 9-game trial. I could be entirely wrong. You know, the 3-on-3 tournament can be deceptive, very deceptive. But that's why the prospect tournament next month will be so important. I really do. I think Laguerre could be the guy who forces his way in with a 9-game tryout. That's my prediction right now. You can write it down. You can tease me if it doesn't happen. I do think the Penguins got a pair of professionals, though, with Poulin and Laguerre. I don't quite know what else they got. We'll see about the Finnish kids. I didn't see much from them in the development. I think they got a goalie when they signed Emil Larmi. I think you're going to see a lot of him in Wilkes-Barre. I think. Anyway, I saw an athletic guy who has some flaws in his game in Larmi, but I saw enough natural ability that with a little bit of work on the finer points of the North American game, Larmi's going to be pretty good, I think. I don't know if he's an NHL goalie. We'll find out. We'll see how he handles the men of the AHL. But certainly, I think the Penguins have a real chance for a diamond in the rough there. Sean says, hoping which prospect was the one with the wicked wrister? That's Laguerre. Laguerre took paint off the post. I kid you not. It was a man-sized wrist shot. Can I say that? Is that sexist if I say it's a man-sized wrist shot? I mean, it was just heavy. It was thunderous, and it was booming. Okay, what else we got here? I probably shouldn't use, gender-biased language. Political correctness. Y'all know what I meant. No one died, right? No one died. Okay, we're good. Let's see here. Hoping McCann has a phenomenal season. Wondering if he can have the impact that Gensel has. McCann is interesting because he really had an offensive explosion with the Penguins. He was a fourth-line center in Florida. And then with the Penguins, he's playing on the top line as a winger. I love him as a winger, much more so than as a center. I love guys who play with that reckless abandon that McCann does as a winger. Let's see here. Bukestad, I think, will be a pivotal piece this season. Him and Hornquist are a good duo. Jason, go on to Pittsburgh Hockey Now and just search some of the articles we've done on that matter. We have been over that exhaustively. Bukestad and Hornquist were just lights out. They gave up 3 goals against in over a month playing together. They dominated the scoring chances. They dominated Corsi. They just dominated the game. Where they were a little bit shy, they should have scored more goals. Their expected goals versus their real goals were there's a differential there. And that's in large part because Hornquist had such a tight grip on his stick. He was pressing. He was frustrated. He may have been a little dinged up. He never was quite right after the concussion. But, those two were a fantastic duo. And I wish, I couldn't get that message out enough. And now, we have a bunch of new hockey writers in town this year. And so I think that message beyond Pittsburgh Hockey Now has been lost, that Bukestad and McCann were extraordinary. I mean, Bukestad and Hornquist were extraordinary together. Now, Bukestad also has to score a bit more. He can't be a 40-point fourth-line center, or 40-point third-line center making $4 million. He's going to have to up that. Just with the Penguins' structure and their depth, they're going to need, 45, 50 points out of Bukestad and continued great defensive play. Okay, kids. Was that the last call? Old-time hockey, coach. Yep, absolutely. Okay, kids, I'm done. You have fun. I'm going for lunch. You can always tweet me at @DanKingerski. Any questions, any thoughts? Occasionally I have weird thoughts, too. All right, have fun. I'll see y'all.